So for 137, solving a rational equation that simplifies to a linear, unlike binomial denominators. You see an equation, and this equation has fractions. Immediately, what do? What should be like the first thought? I see fractions and I will
Complain.
complain, yes.
Same denominator.
Say that again?
Same denominator.
Same denominator. So that is true if I don't have an equal sign. I'm going to need the same denominator for addition, subtraction. But there's a bigger mantra out there, like every single time you see an equation, so an equal sign, and it has fractions, there's something you can do that will always be a great first step.
You switch them around.
Okay, I'll tell you. You multiply both sides by the denominators. Earlier, we did some with just numbers, like a denominator was 2 and another denominator was 3. So we multiplied both sides by 6. I have a recollection of that. Okay, so here we want to multiply by the denominators. But before we multiply by the denominators, we need to see what the denominators are made out of. So this denominator here is just u minus 6. There's not much I can do with that. But this denominator has a 3 and a minus 18. And so these 3 fits into both of those. So I can factor a 3 out. So if you take a 3 out of this, I have u. And if I take a 3 out of that, I have 6. So I'm going to go ahead and take that 3 out. Let's just redistribute to verify. 3 times u is 3u, and 3 times negative 6 is negative 18. Okay, so this denominator has a 3 and a u minus 6, and this one has a u minus 6. If I did want to make them the same, this one would need a 3. This one is over 1. It would need both the 3 and the u minus 6. And so that common denominator, that's the least common denominator, that's what we're going to multiply both sides by. So this is multiplying by the denominators. So if you're going to multiply both sides by the denominators, we're going to put a set of parentheses around the left with the blue outside of it, and what's on the right in parentheses, and then the blue outside of it, right? Just what I do to one side, I do to the other. Okay, so here we have the original, but notice I just changed the 3u minus 18 to 3 times u minus 6 to emphasize what it's made out of. And then I have my u minus 6. So I'm going to multiply both sides by the 3 times u minus 6. All right, so this part I want you to just watch very carefully because we're not going to show a lot of work. When you take the blue times the first fraction, the 3 and the 3, they cancel. The u minus 6 and the u minus 6, they cancel. So the only thing left is the number 6. Okay, so I'm going to slide this across and say, all right, so far, all I have is 6. We have to keep distributing, so we're going to take the blue times negative 3. Nothing cancels. So we're going to have the negative 3, we're going to have the 3, and we're going to have the u minus 6. And when you're distributing, you're multiplying. So these are all multiplied together. So notice I have the negative 3, the 3, and the u minus 6. Okay, so now this one, when I do this, the u minus 6's cancel, and I still have a 2 and I have a 3. So over here I have a 2 and a 3. Now we're going to solve this equation, which is much easier than the original. Be careful, don't start subtracting, right? Order of operations. You cannot do 6 minus 3. But over here I have 3 times u minus 6, and you can multiply in any order you want. So 3 times 3 is 9. So this is going to turn into minus 9. And then I went ahead and said 2 times 3 is 6. All right, so then we keep on going here. Now I can distribute this negative 9 through. So negative 9 times u is negative 9u, and negative 9 times negative 6 is going to be 54. And we still have this 6 out front. Don't accidentally subtract that. When you're distributing, that's multiplication, and that comes before addition and subtraction. That's why I cannot put those together. Okay, so then I've got negative 9u plus 54. Now 6 and 54 can go together. They're on the same side, and that makes 60. So I have negative 9u plus 60 equals 6. Okay, then I can move this 60 over. So if I subtract 60 from both sides, got my negative 54, divide by negative 9, and I get 6. But darn it, we have done a ton of work, and danger, danger. We have two big mantras. Number one, I see an equation with fractions, I will multiply both sides by the denominator. The second one is my original equation has a variable in the denominator, so checking is not optional. What we're worried about is dividing by 0. So I need to put this 6 back in the original. So if I put this 6 back into the original, 3 times u minus 18, 3 times 6 minus 18, that's 0. This says 6 divided by 0. If you type in 6 divided by 0, right, it's undefined. So we're going to, and I could do it in the other fraction as well, 6 minus 6 is 0. So when you're dividing by 0, I have to throw this out. And since I'm throwing out the only answer that we got to, it's no solution. I have an extra negative out in front of this fraction and out in front of this fraction. We still start the same. 2v plus 10, we want to see what it's made out of. And since there's a 2 in common, I'm going to factor out a 2. And then the denominators, the common denominator there is a 2 and a v plus 5. So once again, we're going to multiply both sides by both 2 and v plus 5. Now when I go to distribute this, let's just look at our pieces. So the blue times the first fraction, the v plus 5's cancel. So I have a negative, I have a 2, and I have a 3. But what's that negative the same as? It's just a negative 1. So this is negative 1 times 3 times 2. Okay, now here, when I run that through, the 2 cancels, the v plus 5 cancels, and so I still have a negative 5 and a 2, and that's multiplication because distributive property, so negative 5 times 2. And then when I run this through, I have negative 4 times 2 times v plus 5. And I color-coded it just so that you could see what's left over in case you need to look back at it. But we have negative 6. Be careful, don't put those together. We need to multiply before, so negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. And then negative 8 times v is negative 8v. Negative 8 times 5 is minus 40. I can now put the negative 5 and the negative 40 together. Get negative 45, add over 45, and then divide by negative 8. This is such an ugly answer. I don't want you to think when you check it that you have to simplify all the way down. If I put negative 39 over 8, I get negative 24 as negative 24. All I really care about is that I'm not dividing by 0, so that's my final answer.